Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And he said 20. Third man came, what do you think he said? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And the messenger said 30. So with each progression of this greeting of peace, there's reward. The minimum is assalamu alaikum. And that is if someone even gives you assalam, your minimum response is wa alaikum assalam. To get more reward, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. More reward, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. More reward, do it with a smile on your face. More reward, embrace the brother. More reward, ask him how he's been doing, what's going on. All these things add to the measure of that greeting and the purpose of it. And if someone gives you salam and you turn your face away and don't respond, then that's not pleasing to that person nor to the Creator. There's no reward.
You get a reward, but it's a punishment.
Well, you get your just reward. We don't want to get that. Get what your due is. So I want us always to keep these points in mind, because this is critical, as I say, building a spiritual community. And in the American system, no one wants to give each other a dime at a time. That's the way we are now. We didn't used to be that way. Some places in the country still, they know how to meet and greet somebody and how to show that social way of acknowledging another human being. But those are just some places in our country. Up north, we tend to get cold. Not just environment. We tend to get cold and close off and stop doing this stuff. So we can't afford to act like the rest outside if we're going to make a change. And thus, it's a force of habit that we have to constantly break and recognize. It's not just the one I know. It's everyone deserves this respect. I was walking in the streets of a small island called Bahamas. And I noticed wherever I went, whoever I passed, they would greet me with a hello and a smile. Everybody. It was just, that was their cultural way of greeting and meeting people. And it wasn't just the greeting and the hello that impressed me. I was walking down the road one day, it was raining, and there were puddles in the road. And I noticed what the drivers were doing, which you don't see here. Here, they just plow right through the street. There's a puddle, they'll splash it, they don't care. There they slowed down, noticing pedestrians walking in the street, and went around the puddle so there would be no effect on my clothes, my body. And that deeply impressed me, because to me this is what it's about, to live in a society where people are conscious and sensitive toward each other. So again, all these things change our minds from the inner to the outward and brings the blessing of community into our, instead of just ourselves.
Can I say something? I'll comment.
Is there a mic? This is just opening remark.
No, it's just a remark.
Yeah.
It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Yes. You need the mic? You gotta have
We got to have a mic, otherwise no one can hear you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
It's turned on, but I didn't hear that. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Oh, okay.
You know, yeah, now I hear it. Yesterday, and you're talking about somebody coming to you, aid or concerned about you. And it was I was in Sam's Club yesterday, and I purchased a couple bags of dog food, and I had them on the cart. And I was looking around for my wife, but one of them had fell off, slipped off, which I didn't know. And this Caucasian lady, she said, "Hey, sir, you losing your dog food?" And I said, "Oh, thank you." So I went to grab it, but it was 55 pounds, and it's down under the cart. And where it fell off at was sort of like it was in the lot, but it was in the area where people were coming in and moving. And the couple ladies, and I think they were African ladies, they jumped out the car and they started running towards me, you know. And I said, "Oh, that's okay. Thank you. They said, "Oh, we help you. And I said, "No, my wife, she's right there. She daydreaming, doing something like that." So, and they jumped back in the car. And the reason I say that, I don't think American women would have did that. You know, I really don't. But I think they were, I say African, but they could have been from another island or something. But they wasn't from here. You know, and they showed the kindness. And I don't think that would have happened here. And I was really appreciative of that. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Yeah, indeed, this was one of the qualities. If you recall, when the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out of the cave, experienced for the first time revelation, he went to his wife, Hazrat Khadija, Allah be pleased with her. And he expressed his concern about what he just experienced. What was the one thing she said to him to console him, comfort him, to make him feel that indeed God didn't abandon you, don't worry about this? What did she say about his character as opposed to the other people in society around? It was a testimony of his character. What did she say? Yes? Grab a mic. Someone want to speak up. Brother down here want to say some words here. Yes. Yeah, I'm having the mic.
Phillies player, I won't throw it to you because you can't catch. It's off.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I think she said something to the effect of about his character and how he's noble and honest.
Mhm. Yes. What else? What else she said? Mhm. Don't guess that. If you know it, then fine. Or you can pass on the mic. Brother Yaya, you want to say something? Quickly now, we want to get to the main subject.
I think this goes along with that. She says something to the effect that they had known his character and his qualities long before, and because of that, it wouldn't be a thing. All of a sudden, he would be, that would have changed. I don't know if this is at the same time.
Okay. Take a look at the statement. It's a very powerful statement. But one thing she said is, you are the one who has more or less retained the lost values of our people. Our people basically have forgotten these things, as you're talking about, when someone rushes forward and helps you. And we knew he was the one that would go forward and help those who were in need. But the Arabs stopped doing that. He was the one that would look after those who are downtrodden in society. The orphans, the widows, the children, whatever. And they all loved him for that. But the Arabs had forgotten that. And he was the one that still had the qualities of honesty and truthfulness and trustworthiness, etc. And the Arabs had forgotten that. So the question that I'm raising here is not just, it's a nice discussion that, yeah, this country has it, we don't. The question is, are we going to be the ones to show Americans, show our society those qualities once again, and impress them because they know they're lost, they're missing. These are the values we used to have in ourselves. So, from there, let's now go back to our discussion from last week and move it a bit forward. The issue was Tawheed. What does the word mean, Tawheed? Tawheed.
The unity of God.
Unity of God. Wahid, one. God is Wahid, He's one. Or Ahad. These are the words we talked about when Hazrat Bilal, the slave, was being persecuted by his master. And the master would put heavy stones on him and keep him under the hot sun in that condition and trying to break his spirit. But instead of breaking his spirit, he kept shouting one word out. What was that word? Ahad, Ahad, Ahad. One. That God is one. You believe God is all these multiple gods you created with your own hands, but I believe God is one. So the first concept is Tawheed. The second is Shirk. Now most Americans, they hear the word Shirk, they think the English word Shirk. I'm going to shirk my duty or something like that. Means I'm going to abandon and not do my duty. But this is an Arabic word. And it's in al-kalama, la sharik. So shirk means what? Not to associate anything with God. Not just the physical being. We discussed last week, there are other forms of idol worship. Right? Can you recall any of them? What other ways are there that we become idol worshippers? Yes.
Money.
Money. What else?
People in general.
People. Begin to put our trust in people. What else? We went through a number of yes.
Statues.
Physical statues, things we build. What else?
Pictures.
Pictures. Can be worshipped. What else?
Cars. Houses.
Material possessions. What, besides that, what else?
The elements.
Could be the elements.
More than one God.
Natural elements. We begin to think those things have some power. The sun, the moon, the stars, the water,
Children.
the rain, the wind. What else? Children. We begin to think children will give us some power and strength, because the more kids you have, the more chance of your success. And so a man is prideful that I have so many sons. And he gets downcast when he has so many daughters, because they suck the income. They take the income out. So you begin to invest in this child's going to do something for me. Anything else?
Ourselves.
We begin to worship ourselves, our own minds, egos. We begin to think we are gods. And in the history of religions, people actually have stood up and said, I am God to the people, and bow down to me. And in this day and age, it still goes on. There are some nations where they build the monuments, and you go in those nations, if you don't show respect to that individual and that monument, they will hold you accountable. So there are two poles here now. And this is what, again, we all got to think about. On one extreme, where you talk about true worship of one God and one God only, is Tawheed. On the other extreme is Shirk, associating partners with God. And you can say this is a long, basically this is a table, so to speak. And we all are going to fall somewhere along this line. Either we're with God, the prophets, and the angels who are calling us toward worship of one God. Or we're susceptible to being dragged to the other direction by Satan and his forces, and those who have been influenced by Satan who want to bring us and drag us in that direction. We're somewhere on this scale, all of us. Everyone sitting in this room, everyone in this world. And let us not think we're not. Either we're on this scale moving toward God and Tawheed, oneness, or we're somewhere on the scale moving toward Shirk and the satanic forces. And this is the basic struggle of life for all of us. And what we're trying to do is move closer and closer as we can in our life toward the scale that says I'm heading toward one God, and away from the scale that is satanic and Shirk. And then once we begin to do this, we have the power to call people in the same direction. And if we cannot do this, and we're being dragged in the other direction towards Shirk, how on earth can we possibly call people toward the oneness of God when I'm caught up in my heart and my mind with so much idolatry, open and hidden? So again, this is personal now. All of us got to always figure out, where do I stand on this scale? On one end is God and oneness of God. On the other end is those beings and those forces that disassociate themselves with God or set up partners with God. And in essence, we begin to think about it, and again, we've got to stop and think about it. This is our struggle of life. This is our personal jihad. We all love to believe that I stand with God and the prophet. I'm like the angel. I never disobey God. I'm always focused on God. I'm always worshiping God. I'm like the prophet. I love God heart and soul. As we said last week, this is the message of real La ilaha illallah. I love God heart and soul. With all of my mind, with all of my heart, all of my soul, all my strength, all the time. I never abandoned that position. And then I said, you got to keep asking the question, is that true? Because the moment you see that it's not true, whatever that area is, whether we have somehow fallen prey to believe this person, this thing, this idea, this myself, whatever, is going to give me some strength or can cause me some harm, that's when I have entertained Shirk. And this is such a subtle struggle. We should realize all of us are being attacked with it. The first commandment of the 10 Commandments You may have never read the Ten Commandments of Moses. It's in the Torah. Some Christians like to call it the Old Testament, but Jews don't like it being called Old Testament because they feel there's only one Testament, the Torah. They don't believe in Jesus in the New Testament, so they say there's only one book, the Torah. So, kind of note this, that if you're addressing a crowd that has Jews and Christians in it, call it the Torah. Don't call it the Old Testament because they don't believe in a Old and New Testament. It's the Torah and it's the Gospel. That's fine. Okay? But what was the first of the 10 commandments? There were so many commandments that gave them to Moses, like Holy Prophet Muhammad, but there were 10 basic ones. What's the first one?
I am the Lord thy God.
Here, say here.
I am
the Lord thy God.
I am the Lord your God. And what else?
Well, it was translated, hear, O Israel, your God is what?
That's what Jesus said. I'm saying, what did God say to Moses?
To Moses.
The 10 commandments. What are you adding?
And worship none but me.
It is written, you shall have no other gods besides me. You shall have no other gods besides me. That is basically saying, La ilaha illallah. Only one being we're to worship is God and God alone. No other being. And this was the first of the commandments given to Moses. Right? The second commandment given to him. Again, very important. There are 10, but I say there's about 500 in the scripture. And the second one is equally important for what we're discussing. I'm not going to challenge you that you have read the Torah, so I'm going to read it out. You shall not make for yourself an idol. They called it back in the day a graven image, but people didn't know what that meant. You didn't say, if I said, what's a graven image? You're not, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Engraving an image. So just think about that, carving and creating something. But now in the modern English, they've done us a favor to make it something we can understand. You shall not make for yourself an idol, or any likeness of what is in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. That covers it all. Nothing that you know in the heaven, in the earth, and the waters beneath should be something you consider God. And don't make those things into something that you consider God. It goes on, you shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Aren't you jealous? Who's not jealous? If someone right now entered your home, took all your possessions, threw you out, claimed your wife and your kids, and say, I am now so-and-so, what would you do?
End up in gratis for it.
Someone's going to jail.
Yeah, that's
Something's going to happen. You're not going to just sit back and let someone claim this. If you have invented something, Brother Khalid, you're an intelligent man. You gave the first best answer. You have invented something right now. You have a copyright, a patent on it. I come along and I take your product and try to sell it in the market. What are you going to do?
Make two gods and tell Allah.
You're going to make your two cards and tell Allah. What else would you do, though? You have some right on this, don't you?
I'm going to sue you.
No, but I guess I'm a different type of person.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Yeah, I had a question. I couldn't understand, because I always thought when it was said that he was a jealous God, I felt that Allah was above those kind of.
This is why I'm explaining the word. The word is misunderstood. Brother, you can come forward here. There's some chairs in the front. We prefer not to have anyone sitting behind so you can join the conversation and feel part of the group. What Brother Khalid mentioned was that his nature is not to object if someone wants to steal his right. But what I'm saying is we do have right. We have an identity, and no one can take our identity. the Prophet of Islam said, if a child is born in a home, no one can claim that as their child. It is the child of that father. The father has a right. If you have invented a product and you have copyrighted that product, whatever it is in the system, you now have a right of that product that someone must come to you and take permission to utilize it. If they don't do that, you've broken copyright laws, and that person could sue you or could make an objection, is all I'm saying. You don't have to go suing, but you can object that this is my product. And so when God is saying, I am a jealous God, he's not saying that he's going to sue us. He's saying that I also demand to be acknowledged that this belongs to me. And you cannot associate or give this to some other being. It is my creation. And therein lies my sense of association with it, my sense of possession of it, my sense of sovereignty over it, and no one can challenge that. Just as we don't like to be challenged in our own life. So it's not in a negative way. It's in the positive way that we all would stand up for what is truly our own. Our body, our family, our possessions, etc. But let's complete this passage and we'll see what else he says. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. So again here, what is God saying? That I am the only being that you are to worship. And once you do this, you love me, I will show you the love back. And if you reject me and hate me, then that is something you're going to suffer for generations. Not just yourself, but for generations that will come. And this is going to be the history of mankind as we begin to look why this concept is so important. This second aspect is what we have in our profession to be Muslims. To be Muslims, we say two things. We profess, Ashhadu, I bear witness, Allah ilaha illallah, that there is none worthy of worship but Allah. Then we say, Wahdahu la sharika lahu. He is one. And he has no partner. This is the second thing we got to ask ourselves. Have we placed anything in terms of partnership with God, having made that profession? And if so, this is where he says, you have roused my jealousy, my anger on you and perhaps on generations to come after you. And this is how people get destroyed. This is how nations come to ruin. This is how the high are brought low and the so-called low and humble are lifted up. And so in everything in life, this is the central theme and teaching of every single religion. This is it. You reject me is as if you rejected everything because I gave you everything. You think water is something? I gave you water. Air? I put air there. People around you support you? I created them. The heaven over your head? That's from me. The earth beneath your feet? I brought that into being. All the nutrients and nourishment that you need to sustain yourself from birth to death, I provide all that. So who are you turning to? Who do you think has provided all this that you're going to turn from me and not even acknowledge me, or at least don't talk bad about me, don't reject me, don't hate me? Neutral I can handle, but you start turning that hate toward me, then there's going to be reactions. So this is what God first teaches to Moses in the Ten Commandments. No God but me, and no association. And this is universal now. Where do we find this in Islam? It's throughout our professions. It's also in terms of Ahmadiyya. What's the first condition of our bayat to become a member of this community? That Prophet alayhi salam, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said, to be a member of this community, there are 10 basic conditions that you must fulfill. 10 conditions. And the first one is what? Anybody here know? I'm a nerd.
That he would keep away from shirk, he or she would keep away from shirk,
or associating partners with God.
He or she will keep away from associating partners with God. What is the force, I'm saying, that gets us to want to associate partners with God? God has given this force also life, but what is that force? I mentioned it, but let's think clearly about this. It's in all of our lives, and let us not think it's not. Because once we think that, that force has more power on us. Once we won't be observant and vigilant, it'll come upon us. What is that force? Anybody?
Temptation? Shaitan?
Shaitan. Satan, Shaitan. Satan proves in the same message of Bible that once God revealed himself to Adam and Eve, he was then excited to attack and prove to God, these two do not love you. They do not worship you. They do not obey you. And therefore, they deserve your anger and punishment. It's in the Old Testament, the Torah, and it's in the Quran, the story of Adam and Eve. Again, reading just from the Torah in Genesis, this is the story that shows where Satan encourages disobedience and disassociation with God. It says about Adam and Eve, they were forbidden. We talk about the forbidden fruit, right? They were forbidden from eating the certain fruits and going near a certain tree. Satan comes to Eve, and this is what he says. The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you shall not eat from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." This was God's word to Adam and Eve. And so the woman, Eve, is telling this Satan that God commanded me, don't go near this tree, don't touch it, don't eat the fruit. This is what Satan says to her. You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. Here's the first step. Be like God. That sounds pretty good. And you will know good from evil, as God knows good from evil. So you're going to gain a certain knowledge. And what is bad about knowledge? So the way that Satan approached Eve and Adam was through something that appeared good. Acquisition of knowledge that would improve your condition and allow you to perceive things that you couldn't perceive before. Good and evil. But the basic point was God had commanded, instructed them not to do something. Satan was saying, go against that command. In other words, God doesn't know what he's talking about here. God has deceived you. God has lied to you. God has told you something that will not happen. This is what's going to happen. He says death, I say life. And we know the story. According to the Torah, according to the Bible, this is the narration of the fall of Adam. Went ahead and ate a piece of that forbidden fruit and committed what is called the first sin, the original sin. But the original sin wasn't the act of eating the fruit. What was the original sin in this whole scenario?
Going against God.
Going against God. The original sin was shirk. The first sin was disobedience of the being who creates and commands. And then after that, the next steps doesn't matter. You already made the first great step. And so in this struggle of life I'm talking about all of us are on, this also is the first step and first struggle for us. Are we going to accept what God has given us as his command and a way to prosper? Or are we going to reject and begin giving in to satanic forces? And they come in different ways, you know. I mean, it's not like there's some so-called forbidden fruit out there. It's just a concept. It's whatever has been forbidden. Now, you look at this from many angles. step by step, it comes at us. Satan don't come right out and say, reject God, reject faith, especially once you have it. He won't do this. As we talked last week, how did he convince the people after Noah to become idol worshippers? What was the first step? Do you call it? Those Arabs, those people after Noah, not Arabs, those descendants of Noah, who slowly went into idolatry, what was the first step? What happened? Anybody recall?
That the man passed away who they all thought was a saintly man, and he said that, let me make a statue of him so you can remember him. And then he saw that they were all remembering that statue, so then he said, let me make a statue to put in each.
Okay, someone passes away who was loved. A loved one that passes away. Right? A loved one passes away. And so the first sentiment is sadness. That we're never going to be around this person anymore, we won't see him no more, we can't have his company no more. And so Satan comes and gives the first suggestion, which is one that is still given to people. Make a memorial. Just create something to remind yourself and let that be in your presence. Nowadays, there's going to be pictures. You see them all over the place. People die. You drive by, what is that? It's a memorial to so-and-so who died. Because this group of people love that person. And at first, it's limited to those people who were the loved ones. The next step, the Satan says, now it's good, why don't you bring this person along with you to your assembly so that everybody can get to know and remember the good qualities of that person. He was a brave person, an intelligent person. We just want to talk about him. That, oh yeah, so-and-so was around us, he was a very good man, he's still with us, well look, here's this picture, here's this carving. And then Satan says, this is not enough. Let's take this person and let all you have assembled, like that one you're using in your group meetings. And so all you can bring so-and-so back to your home. And remember that person with love. So now I have a picture or a carving of whoever so-and-so was, and all of us in the whole town, we're loving this person, that so-and-so is with us here, And the last step is, these people die. And the moment they die, the children who were behind were observing all this. No one had to tell them that we love so-and-so, they could see it. He's in your home every single day, and you're loving this person. And yet the children don't really understand. They didn't know this person. They just know the feeling that was conveyed by the elders. And that was a powerful emotion. It was love. And so now the children continue to love this person and push this person forward. And this person was the best of all time. The whole city and town was loving him. He had to be the best. And the next thing you know, those children die, and the next group come on. This person wasn't the best. He was the best, the ultimate. He was the God of power, the God of knowledge, the God of strength, the God of, wisdom. Because this is the quality we heard this person always had. And now they began to worship as God, the person who initially was just someone we loved. So it was that love that went overboard that pushed us toward shirk. Now we ask ourselves the question, what do we love? There's a word in Arabic, or love, is hub. Hub. And think about that word. Hub. What word in English sounds close to it? That shows this is something we love to do.
Hug. Hug.
Hub.
I said the word for hug.
Hub.
Love.
What word in English is close to the Arabic word hub?
Hope.
And shows that this is something we love. We love to do. And we ask each other all the time about this. What is your hub? What word is that? Hobby. Look at the word in English. What's your hobby? In Arabic, to say someone I love or something I love is hubbi. Hubbi. It's an Arabic word. English will say hobby. What's your hobby? What do you love to do? How do you spend your time? How do you engage yourself? What's your focus? That's my hobby. It could be reading. It could be going out in the woods and walking around. It could be shooting off birds and pigeons. I don't know, whatever it is. Whatever makes you, makes your boat float, as they say. That's your hobby. And it's these things that if we're not careful, we go excessive and they become our ilahi, our gods. The things that we love, heart and soul, all our strength and all our might and all our mind. So the hubbi becomes ilahi. And both are linked to the same concept, something you love. So if we don't have the conversation with our own hearts, every single day, every single moment of life, what do I love? The struggle of saying La ilaha illallah is going to be there where we think we're moving in this direction when in fact Shaitan is pulling us back because he sees something we love and that's where he attacks. You love money? Okay. He offered the Holy Prophet Muhammad to be what? The richest man. All the money you want. He said no. You love women. There's something men love. We'll offer you the most beautiful woman in the land. A lot of men will say, okay, I'm in.
At least once.
There's a lot of men that look around the world. What is bringing down the great leaders and people in all these fields? It's this issue that the love for women. It could be also children, as we said. They're linked. The Quran mentions these loves. It's in chapter 3, it talks about it. Man loves certain things. He loves women, he loves children, he loves wealth, all these things. He loves power. All men, this is that alpha dog that's in man. He just wants to be the head of leader of the pack. He loves power. The messenger was offered that will make you the chief. And they love authority and control. My rule, nothing can challenge it. So they said, we'll even give you the control of heaven. He said, you can give me the sun and the moon. In all that case, I still won't accept. So his offer from Satan was rejected. Rejected, constantly. But trust me, we're all being offered the same thing all the time. All the time. Satan will not stop till he finds your hubbi. And then he'll work this thing to drag you away from love of God. For instance, every single Friday, God commands us as Muslims that when the day of Friday comes, فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. You should now rush toward remembrance of Allah, وَذَرُوا الْبَعْدِ, and leave off the bad. All the trade and all the forms of gaining something that we think is going to help us. Bring resources and wealth into our lives. So I remember one person who was a businessman, he would tell me, he said, it's uncanny. At Friday, an hour or so before Jumu'ah, someone always enters my shop and begins to engage me in a business transaction that will just take my time. And it's one of the best deals I always get. It's uncanny. It always seems to happen right on that moment where I say, I got to leave. And so suddenly, I got to leave. Someone walks in the door. Sir, can I buy this from you? Or can we discuss this situation? And yet he recognized that this was this satanic trap trying to get him to break his link with God and stay connected to this material world and all of its, enticements. Do it. And it's not easy. How many of us struggle with this? Because this is, again, a universal struggle. We got some questions here. Any comments yet?
Yes, just some questions I was jotting down as you were going along. Pertaining to the last thing that you said about our love of God and as opposed to the love for children, the question is like this. Does not God want us to love our wives, our children, and our possessions?
Yeah.
And how do we manage that love but still demonstrate that we love God only, as in La ilaha illallah?
Yes. So this is a very important question. And that's why I said he finds a love and then takes it to extreme. Shaitan is extreme. He's not balanced. Everything extreme is satanic. Everything balanced, this is spiritual. This is godly. This is Allah. And the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a man who loved his family, loved his children, loved his people. And he would encourage people to go out, as I said, to acquire the things of this world. He taught us to pray, that, oh Allah, grant us the good things of this life. But through these good things, let me use them in the best way so I get the best things of life to come. Don't grant me things and let me be satisfied with them and be engrossed in them and make them my hubbi. And now I'm so happy I got all the things I want and I've stopped here. This is in it. I'm in my heaven right now. Well, you don't realize he's actually in the hell. Because this small little world, you think this is heaven? And is this all you want? It's like throwing a kid some, piece of soil in form of a meat pie and say, here, this is your meat pie, And kids don't know. They're so young. Oh, they're so happy. We got this little thing, that someone gave me. And they don't realize they're eating dirt. But this is their joy. So the critical point here is, Islam is not saying to us, the point here is not that we should not love. The point is, we should know that we love because of the sake of what? I love because of God's love. These are the words of Hazrat Sulaiman, Prophet Solomon. Allah be pleased with him, alayhi salam. He loved what? He loved animals. And one particular animal, which one did he love? Horse. He loved the horse. He loved the beauty, the form, he was a person who loved, the equestrian style like there are some people. And yet what he would say is, I love this animal for the sake of its reminding me, dhikr Rabbi, reminding me of my Lord. I know who is the source of creating this beauty in my life. And it makes me love that creator even more. So love doesn't take me from God. The love of these things moves my heart even more to appreciate God and recognizing the creator of these things. The love of one's wife or one's husband doesn't take you away from the remembrance of God. These are the sources that make you realize the mercy of God to bring such companionship in your life and to sustain your needs through such person who's walking along life with you. And makes you realize that as a measure of my gratitude to God, I must love this person back. For if I don't do it, it means, oh God, I don't love what you gave me. I don't love how you cared for me. Oh God, I don't even consider that this was from you. This is because I look so nice, I have so much money, or I'm the most popular man in town. That's how I got this beautiful woman. And this is the mistake people begin to make in everything. So the key point is balance. Right? We don't want to become monks to live in, the woods or whatever, and think this is holiness. That's not the meaning of it. You have a point you want to raise. You got the mic in your hand, and you're staring at me like you want to say something.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. And, was there another question?
I do have some other questions here, but if there's anybody from the group that likes to pose a question.
Anything we said so far, we discussed so far, anyone has any follow-up questions?
So shirk could also be a form of you loving your kids too much. Basically, I think the Bible, it speaks about us separating that love we got for our families, for our daughters and our sons with God to some extent. I'm not reading it exact because it's not in front of me. But sure could be the same form of love you give to your child. God commands you to do a certain thing, but you also want to, because it's your child, you show that favoritism to some degree, maybe, no?
Exactly. It happens all the time. All the time. Again, there's something we're being called to do. A sacrifice to make. It could be a sacrifice of money. But now I realize my child has asked me for something that requires money. So which request will I honor? The one of God or the one of the child who I love? So do I love my God more than my child to say, as Hazrat Ali, Allah be pleased with him, said to his son, Hassan, that, oh Hassan, I love you. But it can never interfere with my love for God. And again, this is a struggle of those who have children and who seek to keep them in good favor. It could be a Jamaat program, right? And the parents are being told by our guide that we want all the children to show up. And the children is telling the parents, but today is my soccer match. Today is the big Super Bowl match on some sport on television. I got to watch this. Everyone's watching this. They'll be asking me about it on Monday in school. And how can I go to the mosque for the children's program when I want to do this? So how do we direct our child to know that we say La ilaha illallah? Once I say, oh, you're fine, you're right, go ahead, sit down there and watch it or go play. I just told this child, I myself don't believe in La ilaha illallah. I myself have not given God precedence and love above everything else. I love you more. So yes, I obey your command. And we don't see it like that. We say, no, we're being kind and loving and considerate to our kids. Actually, we have now taught our children to reject the idea that God is first. And when we begin doing this, we begin teaching the important value of what we say we profess. It could be the wife. It could be anything. Anyone.
I think that you can actually give some time to, like if the child wants to do something, play a soccer match or, basketball or whatever, you can allow him to do that, but, you say after you make your prayers and everything, then you can watch the game or you can participate in this sport or something. So it's like, you try and divide the time so that basically he knows the importance of prayer, but at the same time he's able to, still participate in his game and things like that.
I hope we're saying the same thing.
That's the balance you were talking about.
I believe we're saying the same thing. I just want to be clear. At what age is a child supposed to offer prayer like an adult?
10.
I believe it's 12.
After the age of 12.
11?
Puberty.
No, they said 10.
7.
I have a lot of different numbers coming out here.
I'm giving you
7
mine. I'm
years
gonna go
old
with mine.
supposed to start praying.
I'm hearing 7, I'm hearing 10, I'm hearing 11.
I went with
10,
12.
I think they said it should be start teaching him or showing him.
I think you can show them.
These are all just
but I
arbitrary
think
numbers. What's the actual
when they
like?
committed at 12.
What is an age that a child is supposedly aware of right and wrong?
Oh, right or wrong. He may know that.
11?
We say there's an age of innocence.
Pardon me?
Children, there's an age of innocence where a child isn't held accountable for the things they do. Even in our own laws, just forget religious law, in our country, up to 18, we say this is a juvenile, and they're treated differently than an adult, right? So we know there's an age where, after which,
They say
you're more accountable to what you're doing. In Islam, that age is 12. 12. That's roughly when now the full maturity of mind is taking place, where you can really make your proper choices. Before that, it's all emotions and just ignorance, and just it's a innocent ignorance. I don't mean it in a way of a foolish ignorance. So you can't hold them accountable, and therefore they're not sinful, because to be sinful, it has to be with conscious knowledge of right and wrong. Without that, you can't be a sinner. So an imbecile, a person of low mentality, a child, a person who's caught up in passions or whatever, there is no accountability. So let's say that after that point, they're now independent and supposed to do everything right. So this is what I'm saying. I hope we're saying the same thing. We're not saying that at that point we're still going to tell our children, well, you can pray once a day and that's okay. Although God is saying 5 times a day, I'm going to allow you to pray once a day. And in my book, it's okay. The rest of the time you can do what everyone else does. Other than that, yes. In between prayers, in between obligations, you're free like anyone else in life to pursue happiness, whatever that may be for you. Your hobbies. No one stops you. And no religion is restricting us to that point where 24/7 we're engaged in worship of the way we're thinking of prayer, etc. But 24/7 we're engaged in putting God first. That's the life, the ultimate life of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is our model. No time was off. And if we can't go back that far, think about life of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if we can't go back that far, think about our Khalifa. And examine his life and you'll see the balance. Just go and spend some days with him. You'll see the balance. What La ilaha illallah means in a practical form. He does all of what is commanded by God 5 times a day in the mosque, and yet his life is 1,000 times more active and industrious than anyone sitting here. So it's not to say that he has no social life. He has a social life. He has a family life. He has a communal life, and he has a personal, spiritual life with his Creator. It all is there in portion, in balance. And this is what Shaitan wants to always find, how I can create the imbalance and take them away. Because they want to be a scholar. Okay, here, spend all your time studying. Boom, gone. Don't see the person for 6 years. Where were they? They were trying to become a scholar. Okay, they're a scholar now. Now what? You can't even find a job. It's no good. Didn't work. Man gets married again. Before that, brother was always around. Sister was always around. Got married. Didn't see him for weeks, months, until the baby comes. Then they start showing up real hard. Oh, help me out now. Kids crying all night long. You know what I'm saying? But they're gone. It's what they call the honeymoon. So now Hubbi was between the two of them. They were off in their honeymoon land. You don't see him again for a long time. I'm being real. This is what Satan does. And when that don't work, then he break them apart. You know, he get all that love to turn into all that hate, and now next thing you know, 3 years later, they're talking about divorce and kill each other, and you know, your honor, this one is not worthy of the kids. And all. It's an unbelievable cycle. He'll throw this couple through just out of what first started as love. You saw someone that looked nice and said, I want to marry that. You finally get it. 4 years later saying, don't no one touch it. Okay? All that was the shaitan that came upon us. And it's about, he knows, you say you love God. No. Right now you're loving the woman, you're loving the money, you're loving the career, you're loving yourself, you're loving all this. And then we're going to turn around and try to go out here and tell Americans who are all caught up in stuff and say, hey, come to us. We're going to show you God and how to live with God. Yes.
Yeah, I was just, excuse me, Assalamu alaikum. I was just thinking about that, you know, in terms of anybody that lives here in America, the challenges you have in terms of what you should be in pursuit of, what you're exposed to on a daily basis. It's really overwhelming as compared to where are the places that I can go and say find my way spiritually. And so, you know, you talk about your children, you know, those of us that don't have, say, extended family, and it becomes even more of a challenge because of that. So, you know, when you put it in the context of what can we do as believers to kind of, you know, say, hey, well, this is the direction I think you can go, even though I know you're being overwhelmed with all the pursuits of life. This is something that I offer up so that I can show you the way, so to speak.
Yes. why is this discussion critical for all of us? And we're trying to come to the end here. If anyone else has any comments, but I mean, this is my question to us. You know, why is this discussion so critical?
Because we're all exposed to it.
We're all exposed to it.
One way or another, you know, and something. So I think that's one reason.
One thing, we're all involved in it. What else?
I think it's to train us to get us to understand the techniques and some of the information that's. I think it's to train us to get us, you know, more educated ourselves, so that we can not only say, speak about it, but apply it to our own lives. And then it not just becomes something we're saying, but we're living it, and then we can express it. So I think this gives us a platform for us to develop that. I think that's what it's doing for me.
Anybody else? Yes, Ahmed.
I think this discussion is very critical because it is making us to realize what it is that we actually love. And when we say love, we love God, what does that mean? And the fact that how important it is for us to be successful in life, to be happy in life, to put God first. Whereas satanic forces and people who speak on his behalf, you could say, they will tell us that you find happiness through these means, through your career, through your children, through your woman, through your possessions. Whereas the prophets of God are telling us that the way to success and happiness in life is through putting God first and loving him above everything else.
Yes. Anybody else? It's a nice summary, but anybody else? Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Just hold it till it turns green there. There you go.
Did it turn anything?
Give him money. Come on,
There you go. You got it.
I got it. Assalamu alaikum. You know, this is a subject that I think we all should try to understand what's going on here, because you're dealing with your thought. Iblis is there at all times. Just like we were speaking about love. You know, if you love something, Iblis know what you love, but he's going to try to make you love that more than you love your God. This is why Allah says to us, you know, remember me much. Zikra. When things like that come into your mind to take you away from the love of God, that's when you use that zikr. Because when you start zikring, Iblis flee. He go away. Just like when you call azan, he flees. He go away. But he comes back. He comes back while you're praying it sometime. But if your mind happened to slip, he's right there to carry it on. This is his job. And he's going to try to do his job well. Things that he don't like is you reading the Quran or thinking about reading the Quran, you praying. He don't like these things. But if he can take away all of these things in your mind, and all you got to do is think about doing a little evil thing, and boom, he's there. And this at where we are right now, this is why Allah says, remember me much. Zikr. Anytime these thoughts come into your mind, you know, when you start zikr, he leaves. Assalamu alaikum.
So our basic consensus is, it's a personal struggle now. And this is the first point I made. Every single one of us are somewhere on the stage of moving toward Tawheed, true oneness in God. God is one, no associate. I love nothing more greater than God Almighty. As the messenger said, you're not a true worshiper until you love God and his messenger more than your children, your family, your wealth, your possessions, your job whose dullness and failure you fear. All these things. Until you love God more than this, you're not a true believer. And we're living in a society now where faith is a struggle because people have been taught the American dream is acquire all these, as Ahmed said. That is the measure for success. That we have achieved all of these material things. Now you are a successful man, and we aspire to be like you. And if the messengers of God came into our nation nowadays, number one, they couldn't get in because they're immigrants. They couldn't get past border security because they won't be dressed proper, they won't be educated, they won't have any thing to show for resources. All of them. You're a messenger of Allah. Allah came to America, stood in front of the border patrol. They said, "What's your education?" He'll say, "I don't even have high school, not even grade school." Really? What do you do? I'm just a basic trader. I tend to animals from time to time. That's about it. So, what skills do you have? Well, I receive revelations from God. God speaks to me. Well, who's your family? All the Muslims in the Middle East. No. You got to go back. From Mecca, Saudi? The reality is, as we think about this, as Brother Bilal said, this is the challenge today of America. Why people are turned away from religion. They have forgotten God. And where our challenge is to make sure we know God, we love God, and we're giving God our priority. That's our challenge. If we want to step up to the challenge in leading this country forward, this is where it begins. It doesn't begin with an argument from the Bible or from the Quran or from history. It begins right this central point of religion. What is the point of religion? To know God and to love God and to obey God. What is the next step once we say, "Yes, God, I know you, I love you, and I will obey you"? The next step is going to be the voice of a being that wants to make sure you never achieve that objective. And that's where Shaitan comes on all of us. All of us. Even the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Shaitan attempted to attack him. But finally he gave up. All of us. And he will attack us in the things I said that he knows we love. Not the things we hate. The things we love. The things we think can give us some benefit or things we fear will cause us some harm. That's where he attacks us. So my bottom line is I want all of us to realize this is jihad. This is the ultimate jihad. This is the greatest jihad. If we can conquer this shaitan and these forces that want to drag us away and really link to God, as they say, game over. Game over. We're there. Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam was the person who, in the Quran, prior to Holy Prophet Muhammad was the epitome of one who gave his heart and soul to Allah and who obeyed Allah and rejected anything else other than God. When he was a small boy, his family was a family that carved the statues. You've heard this history. He lived in this group, like we're living around a group like this, who reject God, atheists, or the idol worshippers in different forms. When the day came, an old man walked in the shop to buy one of those carved items. He asked the old man, how old are you? The old man said, I'm so-and-so age. He said, old man, aren't you ashamed to bow down to something we just made a few days ago?
2 days old.
How you can do it? And when he said this, the father, or the uncle, whose business was to sell those items, was upset because he lost the deal, and he gave Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, the child, a slap. But that slap didn't cause him to go further into shirk like the rest of the family. It caused him to go further in his heart to say, this is wrong. Do what you may. I'm not stopping. So he's the man, look at his life now. He's challenged again and again and again by Satan to abandon this path. His people rise up against him. argue against him that there's no one God, there's the moon, there's the sun, the stars, that's what we worship. And he argues against them. And to prove them wrong, what does he do? While they're not around, he goes to their big God in the center of town who has these huge ears and eyes, and he breaks the ears and the eyes, and the people come back and say, who did it? Who did it? Who did it? So he said, ask this God if he can hear and speak. Why are you asking me? You believe in this God, well, ask the God right now. Let him tell you. But the final point, which I always loved in the narrations of Holy Quran about Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, he showed absolutely nothing swayed him from this position, that I know everything comes from God. Everything comes from God. And he says that when I was ill, it was you, O God, who healed me. It was you, O God, when I was hungry, who gave me food. When I was thirsty, who gave me drink. When I was ignorant, who guided me. It is you, O God, and I have hope and trust that will lead me along the way that achieves salvation. And that you, O God, will have mercy on those who are behind me, who are misguided. That's why I said last week, we don't think this way. We believe we are believers, but in our heart and mind, we believe when I'm sick, it's this pill that's going to heal me. It's this doctor that can save me. It's this prescription, this routine, whatever I've been taught. This is going to correct me. When I'm hungry, I got to go to, Kentucky Fries or Big Mac or go to Mom or Dad or so. They're going to feed me. When I'm thirsty, it's the water sources that removes my thirst. Whatever it is in life that we put in front of ourselves, those are the shayateen, the Satans, that are seeking to overpower us and get us to think in this small area of life, whatever it may be, it's not God, it's this thing. Prophet Messiah alayhi salam used to say, the day I felt the most relaxed was when my pockets were empty. When my pockets were empty, I had no wealth left. It was all gone. He said, that's the day I felt the most relaxed, the most content in heart. Because that was the day when my full thought, heart and soul, and focus and trust was now back on God. And there was nothing intervening between me and my God. And I knew that this God who took care of me, as he says, takes care of the birds when they leave their nest in the morning and come back at night with full bellies. How much worry we have. The moment we can't pay a single bill and the income goes down, the bank dries up, job is laid off, and then we start worrying and come into the mosque and making long prayers. Oh God. Weeping all night long. Oh God. See? But prior to that, this is our challenge. So it's personal now for us. Every one of us have to always stop and think, all of us, where am I on that scale? Closer to Tawheed or closer to Shirk? And wherever there's an area of Shirk, that's when you start to fight that area, heart and soul, and beg Allah for His power and strength to overcome it. So the bottom line then is, we have to ask Allah for this. This is something that is a gift of God's special grace to keep us of those who are always walking on His path and don't forget Him. There's a prayer, a formula I'm going to leave you with. I keep saying it should be practical, huh? Practical means that what we say here should have some kind of steps to take when we leave here. Let's not just make this a discussion. So what do we do when we leave? First thing is, I say, again, think about this in a quiet moment now. And the only question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we love? if we ask ourselves this question, and the first thing coming to my mind is Allah, then alhamdulillah, we're safe. If something else comes to my mind, and I ask myself the question, if it came between that person and Allah, as Hazrat Ali told his son Hassan, would I be ready to make a sacrifice for Allah? And if I'll say no, this is your shaitan. This is your shirk, right there. And fight that thing, whatever it is. With prayer, with focus, and try to overcome as you would fight any other weakness. One of the expressions that we can say and sit and think about this, Hazrat Abu Hurairah, and we'll leave it here, he relates that the Holy Prophet Muhammad said, whoever recites this prayer 100 times, La ilaha illallah, wahdahu, la sharika lahu, lahul mulk, wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. La ilaha illallah. It's the first part of the prayer. What are we saying? There is none that I love, that I adore, that I put my heart and soul into more than Allah. Understand the expression. Oh Allah, I love you and no other being, no associate. La sharika lahu. No associate. I put nothing with you, God. Wahdahu, He's one. La sharika lahu, no associate. Lahul mulk. All of this creation belongs to Him. Every single thing. This thought has to stick in our mind. No one can do anything for me because it all belongs to Him. Walahul hamd. And for Him is all praise. At every moment, His is the praise. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. And He has authority over everything. When He wants to command something, kun, be. Who can stop the command? Fayakun. It's going to come into being. So if I need something, my first call is to the being who can make a command and bring something into being. This is the prayer, and he said, say it 100 times. If you do so, there's a great reward. The person will get the same reward as given to one who frees 10 slaves. That means you've given life to 10 people. Freedom. Or 100 good deeds will be written in your account. Or 100 sins will be deducted from your account. Or it will shield him, and it will shield him from Satan on that day till night. So the Satan who wants to attack us in saying this, that whole day he's finished. He can't attack. And he says, no one will be able to do better deed except the one who does more than him. So you have to say at least 101 times to outstrip me. It's not easy to say this prayer 100 times. It's like I said a few weeks ago in Friday's sermon, and I said last week also. The Prophet said, whoever says La ilaha illallah enters heaven. It's not words. It's meaning we're saying it from our heart and soul. If you get married and you tell your wife, I love you, and that's a flat I love you, she's going to slap you. And she's going to know, you're just saying this. You don't really mean this. A woman knows when you say it. A man knows when someone says, brother, you my brother. No, you just say it. A child knows. Come here, my sweetie. Get away from me. I know you. I don't know who you are. Get away from me. How can we think God does not know? And He'll only know when it comes right from our heart. What I said, these words 100 times, it doesn't mean that it don't mean this. And whip it off as fast as you can. I did it now. I can go. I'm free. I'm saved. I'm protected. No. if we're going to do anything to make a change here, it's got to be inside here. And so why I'm going over all this here is not because there's not plenty of things we can learn in terms of arguments. That's all there. But if this one isn't straight and strong and connected, nothing else happens. So let's end by repeating these words together a few times, and then I'll have this sent to you so you can have it and recite it on a regular basis, inshallah ta'ala. Learn it. I have it in Arabic, it's in English. Best to learn these words in the original language. That's where the greater blessings are. It's a very short expression. I'll repeat one time again. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Again, la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Let's learn it, inshallah, and may Allah accept and bless it.
Alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, I was saying, can you say one more time the translation?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
All right.
We won't have time to go over the whole thing, but basically, there's two things in this that we talked about today. One is Tawheed, oneness of God, and the other is Shirk, association with God. Both these things are in this prayer.
Okay.
So what I say, when we're reciting this prayer, keep thinking that I believe in Tawheed. Only one God, Ahad. And when you come across La Sharik, no associate, keep thinking, do I have anything in my mind or heart still that I associate with God? And then drive that out. Then this becomes a blessed prayer. So pull one thing in, oh God, only you I love, and you alone. And drive one thing out, and oh God, there's nothing else. No association. You have power over everything. Nothing can hurt me, nothing can help me but you. This is what this prayer is doing for us. In a nutshell, what we discussed today for the last hour, in these few words, the Holy Prophet has taught us a way to keep reminding ourselves of it as we're going to go back into this world where Shaitan is waiting at the door. You're not waiting at your house. You're not waiting at your job tomorrow. You're not waiting wherever you're going to go. He's waiting at this door to grab someone who walks out feeling good about himself. And he's going to show them that, okay, you think you're really good? Let me show you what you are. And he begins attacking. But inshallah ta'ala, this is not the thing we fear. We should fear God, and then that Shaitan gets weak. It's when we fear Shaitan, then he gets strong. Right? If we fear God, Satan gets weak. If we love God, Satan gets weak. But Satan will be there. Yes, Brother Khalid.
Is my pronunciation of I just wonder if it's right. So it's La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulk wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. It's because I'm saying it like this is wrong, or
some of the words we can improve. Sharik. Sharika. Sharika. So when you can read the Arabic?
No.
Okay. And the transliteration may help you. And what will help you also is sit with any brother who can recite it. And keep reciting along with him as we just did. Alright? So that brother can also get the blessing of reciting it, and you get the blessing of hearing it and reciting along. Alright? So just call someone up or meet somebody, sit down with them, and say, hey, let's go over this expression, and let's learn it, inshallah. Jazakallah, I think we should call it a day. Yesterday, the Khuddam had a long night, and I don't want them to have a second long night, and I also have to catch a flight very early in the morning, so may Allah enable us to understand what He wants us to learn in these points, and to live accordingly. To live our life is La ilaha illallah. May He help us to do so, inshallah. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah.
Now, if the first question is where the food, and I know you didn't listen to that, but the first question is, okay, call the azan, and I said, okay, we got it.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to call the azan?
Don't we do dua?
Yusuf.
Don't we do dua?
We did our dua in this expression here, and we're going to say our prayer now because it's getting quite late.
You want to call the azan, Yusuf? Jazakallah. I'm going to save these questions. If it's something we did not touch on, I want to keep them here so we'll have some more.
Are these ones that you received from online?
No, but they didn't really come in. So I was just, listen to the discussion and try to formulate some questions that might touch on those points.